What's happening, folks? Back with more Madonna, and we're going back to the I'm Breathless music from and inspired by the film Dick Tracy. And we're going to listen to Sooner or Later, which a couple people did mention that they were hoping I could react to before moving on to the next proper album. So yeah, once again, shout out to Mark and all the people who've been interested in the Madonna Deep Dive. Mark has just provided a lot of the raw material, shall we say. But also to Izzy, provided some remixes, including some Shep Pettibone remixes. Always keen to hear those. But yeah, ultimately the phrase sooner or later, the idea that there's an eventuality to something, that given a long enough timeline, something will definitely happen. So it might happen soon, it might happen farther down the road, but at some point it will come about. So given that I don't know the movie well, I remember the movie. I remember its sort of cultural impact. It led to like a series of video games at the time, which it seems like a weird adaptation, like a sort of stylized and comic book style gangster film. I'm not really sure how that lends itself to like a side-scrolling video game, but nevertheless, I remember its cultural impact, but I don't know the film really, so I can't speak to how this might relate to the plot of the film or the character Breathless, what is it, Mahoney? Am I remembering that right? So, yeah, in a general sense, I have a clear idea of what the phrase means, but specifically, I might be unable to catch some narrative details. Either way, let's hear it. This is Madonna, Sooner or Later, from the I'm Breathless album, which is, again, from and inspired by the film Dick Tracy, and I believe the album is 1990. I suppose this does make sense, doesn't it? Not going to be an electronic sounding synth groover.
Sooner or later you gonna be mine. Sooner or later you gonna be mine. Baby, it's time that you faced it. I always get my later you're gonna decide.
So deep.
Sooner or later there's nowhere to hide. Baby, it's time, so I waste it in chapter. Let's settle the matter. Baby, you're mine on a platter. I always get my man.
There's that lazy brass feeling.
You insist, babe, the challenge delights me. The more you resist, babe, the more it excites me. And no one I've kissed, babe, ever fights me again. If you're on my list, it's just a question of when I get a yes.
It's like,
then baby, amen. I'm counting to 10, and then I'm gonna love you like nothing you've known. I'm gonna love you when you are alone. Sooner is better than later, but lover, I'll hover, I'll plan. This time I'm not only getting, I'm holding my
I love it. People who may be following my Caro Emerald deep dive will not be surprised that I'm very fond of that. I've heard Cyndi Lauper do tunes like that. I've heard Alison Moyet do a number of tracks like that. And fair to say, like, comparatively, I think Madonna's working from a disadvantage relative to someone like Moyet, who has a naturally deeper voice and who has that sort of rasp that some of those classic female jazz singers would let out of the bottle, if you will. But I think she does a really good job here, and I was, from right away, from the off, if you will, I could tell that she was going to do some of those lower, deep, resonant deliveries, and I do like some of the vibrato moments, especially the one at the end of that long extension at the very end of the song. So yeah, again, it's a jazzy Madonna tune. I enjoy it, an oldie-timey Madonna jazzy tune. So yeah, cool performance, like vocally. I think the composition was well done. Not just, the idea of, and now I'm forgetting the verb. What was the verb? There was a verb, hover. And she was sort of like hovering with her vibrato. And the idea of like, you can say no however many times, I'm just going to be right there. I'm just going to be waiting. And eventually, I always get my man. So if you're on my list, you're in trouble. But it sounds like you're in trouble, will actually be quite an exhilarating and perhaps enjoyable romance. So yeah, ultimately, not knowing the movie, I don't know if that's sung to someone specifically. I don't know if that's actually even from the film. Again, that could just be inspired by the character and the atmosphere of some of the scenes and whatever. But either way, if it's relative to specific narrative events in the film, then yeah, I'm not privy to them. But I do think it is the kind of track that works for any of the sort of unrequited love type of song, meaning she hasn't had the satisfaction of actually being with this person yet, but she's made clear to him sooner or later that will happen. So yeah, cool tune. I like Madonna doing some different genres, which again, my memory of Madonna was already that, like, okay, I remember in the 80s it was very synth pop dance floor type of tunes. But I was aware of at least a couple later. Again, I keep talking about it, The Power of Goodbye. I'm looking forward to getting to that track because, it sort of has a place in my personal history, but I also think it's a very good track. But because of that, I was aware that, like, she evolved over time, at least to some degree, without knowing all the details along the way. But I had no idea that she was involved in that movie, which, again, I didn't really see it, so it's telling. But yeah, she was already doing a variety of things, clearly, before I would realize around the turn of the millennium that, her music wasn't just what I remembered it to be. So, again, it's just cool going on these deep dives. Once again, shout out to Mark in this case for sharing all the Madonna material, as well as others who are helping with different deep dives and different playlists I have. And indeed, I mentioned Izzy earlier. I'm going to try to get back to the group of reactions, the Lucky Dip reactions, not only from Philip but also from Izzy, as well as Han Solo and some others who've provided like one-off tracks. So yeah, looking forward to getting back to everything. I do appreciate the patience, and indeed some people, including Mark, was recently saying, hey, you're allowed to have a break. So I do appreciate that there's people out there sort of looking out for me, making sure I don't overextend myself. And again, I did get sick a couple times, like at the end of last year, so yeah, I appreciate the people who are out there looking out for me. In any case, I still do look forward to getting back to all the different deep dives, and in the process of doing that now. So yeah, I'm not quite sure in the moment if there's more tunes on this album that people ask me to go through. Because again, in a lot of the deep dives, this is happening where some people want to do some of the B-sides and extras, and others are like, yeah, they're cool, but like I'd really like you to get to the next album proper. So in the moment, I'm forgetting what the next appropriate step was, and again, I defer to Mark and others who know her catalog very well. But either way, a fun tune, and one that, whether it's Cyndi, Allison, or indeed Madonna, I just love, or indeed Caro. I love hearing female voices sing jazzy tunes with some swagger and attitude. It's just, something about that sonic dynamic really works for me. So let me know what you think. I will see you next time. Peace.